So where are you guys headed when you saw the accident?
We were at the Middletown Blue Raider game against Scranton Prep. Middletown had won that game. And we left the game, got the whole way into town. Instead of me going straight where we would have went home, I ended up turning down Stoner Drive, and my sister, who was in the car, was like, "Why are you going down this way?" And I said, "I don't know, I just have a feeling I need to go down this direction." We're driving, and then I seen the car flipped upside down, catching fire, and I jumped out the car immediately and took off running towards the car.
We heard the car crackling, it was already on fire when we got there.
I remember running around on both sides of the car, trying to figure out, and I realized, I noticed it was two kids, teenagers trapped inside the car. And I just remember trying to pull out the doors. They were hot,
yeah,
and
very hot.
I couldn't get them open. I started panicking, and I said to my mom, I was like, "We got to get them out this car. They're gonna die. We have to get them out." I was like, "We can't let them stay in this car." And somehow, I don't know what crossed my mind, but I just kicked the back window out, and I remember
he was like crying, "Help me up, get me out of here." So, and he said my legs was on fire. So when she did that, he reached back and we pulled him out that way.
Well, I know at first we couldn't get him out because of the seatbelt. They had their seatbelts on. And I couldn't figure out, I was like, "Mom, I can't get him out, he's stuck, but he had reached his arm back." So then that's when we went back into the car, and I had pulled him out from the front seat out through the back passenger side to get him out. And then when we got him out, he was still on fire. So my mom took her favorite Stiller jacket off and had to pat him out to get the fire off of him. And then we helped him get to the side of the road. And then, of course, Aaron.
I mean, that's kind of when I came into the picture, but my night started, or that event, I guess I should say, started when I was watching TV, and I was about to call it a night, and that's when I heard the crash. And I called up my wife and I said, "Something's going on down at Stoner," because I saw the orange glow coming down from Stoner Drive, which we live in a farm, which is probably about 100 yards away from the street. Came up to the car, and as I was running towards it, Joey was coming out, and after you guys had gotten him out, and I said, "Is there anybody else in the car that?" And then they're like, "Yeah, there could be up to 5 people that were in that car," and. That's when I ran around to the front of the car, which the car was on its roof, and at that point the flames were pretty large. And I ran around to the front, and I did see movement, so I thought, all right, we got to get in here. And I yelled to the driver to reach to me, couldn't reach to me. So that's when I decided I had to jump in and get him, and his arms were hanging down because he's upside down, so and they were pretty close to the ground. And I pulled him, and he came right out, and we both kind of fell backwards onto the side of the road. Scott was still on fire from the waist down, and that's what patted him out.
So was Joey.
Because I was afraid the leaves were going to catch too, And I know, and when I first pulled him out too, we were still pretty close to the car. And I remember, like at that point, I think he had already passed out, and he was really dead weight. And I was like, all right, this car is still going up. I mean, it was just getting bigger and bigger. I mean, these car fires they're so intense.
Our initial dispatch reported, somewhere between 4 and 5 people in the car. The car was overturned and fully engulfed because we were in shift change when the call came in. I leave the station and I come down from the north side of Stoner Drive, and as I'm coming down the road, approaching the airport connector, I just see this orange glow in the sky. And I know it's a big fire at that point, from how far away I am from where they're telling me this crash is at. And, I come underneath the overpass, and then the first thing I see is the car on fire, and I look and I see you taking your sweatshirt and using it to beat the flames out on Scott. I stopped, I grabbed my fire extinguisher out of the car, ran over to where you were at. I used the fire extinguisher to put him the rest of the way out. At that point in time, the fire was so intense, I didn't even know that you two were there or that Rick was there. On the other side of the car, I can see the ambulance on the far side of the car, and I know how injured Scott is, from my training and looking at the injuries he's got. So I'm calling the county to get me, EMS personnel on my side of the car, and one of the EMTs runs past the fire and comes over, and from him, that's when I learned that you guys were there on the other side of the car and had pulled Joey from the vehicle, and we started patient care on Scott. And once the firemen got there and got the car extinguished, that's when I was able to eventually, come over and, meet Jennifer and you, and, hear your side of the story, what you guys had done on that side of the car. I also got to talk to Rick, and, he said that you guys were there before him, and you guys were getting Joey out of the car, and he came up and was hearing that all these other people were in the car, that he ended up actually getting the back door open. After you broke the glass out, he actually managed to wrench the door open. And he was telling me how devastated he was because of how intense the fire was, that he couldn't, there was no way for him to tell whether there was anybody else in the car.
Like, I got over just in time before the fire got even bigger, because it essentially cut the road off, you know what I mean, where somebody almost wouldn't want to pass between like the guardrail and the car because it was just getting so big.
Do you guys feel like heroes after this?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody kept saying that.
Kept
Like
saying
they were
that.
like, "You're a hero."
Yeah, hero is a pretty strong word.
Yeah.
It's, it's something you'd never really want to take credit for, I guess, but you, like you said, you feel like you were just kind of put in that place by something.
Without their actions that night, I have no doubt that both Scott and Joey would have succumbed to their injuries, and their families would have been severely impacted. The fact that people with little or no training, who it's not expected of them to do this kind of thing, take it upon themselves, is meaningful.